Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the 23rd of this month, Rosalie Rosas watched her husband go off to work. She stayed at home with Robert, her son too, and Licia, 11-month-old baby, thinking that the next morning her husband, Agent Rosas, would be back at home with the family. Sadly, that wasn't to be. Agent Rosas was in the Campo area of Southern California, serving the nation that he looked forward to serving for so long. A young man who had grown up in the Imperial Valley area, had served as a reservist, always looked forward to being a Border Patrol agent. While alone, he detected individuals crossing the border. Somewhere in the process of confronting the illegals crossing the border, Agent Rosas was murdered by those illegals. Mr. Speaker, Agent Rosas' situation, and more importantly, the situation of Rosie and the two children, is something that all Americans should remember. That there are Americans every day that are not only defending this country far, far away, but there are agents every day and every night that stand on the border, stand in port of entries, are throughout this country, standing up and defending this country from incursions from across the border and from foreign lands. Agent Rosas died in the service of his country, was murdered in the service of his country, and Rosie and the two kids will never be the same, and neither should this country. Mr. Speaker, there are Border Patrol agents today that are in the sweltering heat of Yuma, Arizona, that are across the Texas frontier, that confront smugglers every day in New Mexico to San Diego. And they do not know which one of the individuals they're confronting is just an innocent illegal who happens to don't realize that you can't come into this country illegally anymore. Somebody that may not mean harm, but is being brought in by vicious, terrible smugglers who not only smuggle illegals but smuggle drugs. That agent doesn't know if the person they're confronting is going to surrender or draw a firearm and kill him immediately. Agent Rosas was shot in the head and killed, but he was able to wound one of his assailants, and the assailant later was detected as far up as northern California, and he was arrested there. With the cooperation of Mexican officials, we were able to apprehend individuals in Mexico. But I think that more important than talking about the crime that was committed at our border, something I think all Americans should have known was coming when we saw the violence that has occurred on the other side of the border for all too long. Americans should have known this violence was going to cross over while we continue to turn a blind eye to the illegal activity along our border, because it just wasn't politically proper to raise the issue that crime and violence is occurring along our frontier. No, the thing that I'd like to remember tonight is that Agent Rosas is just one of many that are out there in the terrible heat of the summer, the terrible cold of the winter, through rain and sleet and snow and whatever it takes to them, doing their duty, and doing it in a nation that tends not to recognize their true service. Mr. Speaker, we use the word hero a lot of times in this country, and sadly we use it too often instead of using the word victim. But there's a big difference, Mr. Speaker, between a victim and a hero. A victim is someone who's at the wrong place at the wrong time and suffers for it. But a hero is someone who willfully puts themselves in harm's way at the wrong time and suffers for it. And I do not think we should, as a society, ever forget the difference between a victim and a hero. Agent Rosas is a true hero, somebody who served this country. And we should all remember, as his services are held this week, that his services are in recognition of not only his sacrifice and his family's sacrifice, but of the sacrifice of the men and women around this country that defend us along our borders. I think it goes without saying that all of us in Congress want to send out our heartfelt sympathies to Rosie and Rob and Elisa for their great loss and their great contribution by losing their father. I hope we all remember that there are fathers and mothers around this country that we ought to appreciate while they're alive and not just honor them when we lose them. And I